Many of the challenges discussed this morning transcend administrative boundaries. Climate change does not stop at borders. Water scarcity does not stop at borders. Biodiversity does not stop at borders, nor do visitor flows, economic interdependencies, or environmental pressures. This is why cooperation matters, and this is why Mediterranean cooperation has become such a powerful tool for accelerating innovation, sharing solutions, and supporting territorial transformation. The next panel focuses precisely on this question. How can cooperation frameworks help destinations move faster, learn from one another, and collectively address shared challenges? To explore these issues, we are joined by representatives of organizations that play a key role in connecting territories, institutions, universities, networks, and projects across the Mediterranean basin. Please help me welcome Mrs. Alessandra Sensi from Union for the Mediterranean. Mr. Gianni Chianetta, Chair of the Greening the Islands Foundation. Welcome. Mr. Marcello Scalisi, Director of the Mediterranean Universities Union, UNIMED, sorry. Welcome. And Mrs. Flora Leroy, Senior EU Programs Officer at the Conference of Peripheral Maritime Regions. Welcome. The discussion will be moderated by Mr. Vincent Ernoult, coordinator of the Interreg NextMed program that promotes cooperation among the two Mediterranean basins. The floor is yours. Is it Vincent or Vincent?
Vincent as well.
Vincent Ernoult?
Perfect.
Thank you.
In fact, where I hear my name correctly pronounced, I don't recognize myself. Because usually people say, tell me Vincent or Vincent, so it's no problem at all. A few years ago, 10 years ago, I think, I took office as Interreg NextMed program coordinator. I made a round of contacts and conversations with many actors that were potential stakeholders and actors in our program of all sectors. And I went to some actors of the tourism sector, too. In concrete, to some regions. I will not tell the name of the region. So I sit with them for quite a while, maybe 30 minutes, and I try to explain them what is Interreg NextMed. Not easy, you know, for people that don't know us. So I spent 30 minutes doing this. I think they understand. And then they tell me, but what's the point of cooperating with Tunisia? What's the point of cooperating with Italy, with Greece? What the hell should I cooperate with these people? These are my rivals. They are not my friends. They are not... I don't want to cooperate with them. That was a very strong response. So I'm not telling the name of the region. Maybe you can imagine. So it was my first contact with the reality, and I realized that cooperating in tourism would not be a walk in the park, at least not always. The good point is that many other regions showed the opposite. I think here today we have the province of Barcelona, exceptional example of cooperation, leading this Euromed mission. It's just amazing and crazy, the job that you've just done, so it's sensational. And also in our program, we had very, very good responses here in Catalonia from the region, Tourism Catalan Board, from the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if you're here. In fact, from here, you don't see a lot, so I'm not seeing the faces. So yes, it was possible to cooperate in tourism, even though we are rivals, even though you are rivals, competitors, and you will still be rivals in the future, trying to attract the same customers, evolving through a greener sector, but still rivals, but also need to cooperate. That's why we are here today. I'm not expert in tourism. I'm very much interested in tourism. Like you, I'm a tourist myself. But I'm for sure an expert in cooperation. So my name is Vincent Ernoult. I'm the coordinator of the branch office delegation of the Interact NextMed program for the Western Mediterranean, cousin and strong partner, of course, of Euromed. Thank you so much for inviting us here. This event is really top of the game in tourism. We have 4 actors today with the same goal as myself, apart from keeping time. I have my watch. But, and timing is there too. But we have a goal, which is convincing the very few skepticals that might be in the rooms, skepticals on cooperation. Are there skepticals on cooperation in the room? Somebody raises his hand. No, don't do it. Don't do it because you will be known forever. So maybe if there are skepticals, convincing them that cooperation is worthwhile. To the others, the already convinced people, you have to deliver strong messages on how you did it yourself and on the future. So how do you see the future of cooperation in tourism with all the inputs that we have received throughout the day? So with us today, we have Flora Leroy, which is a senior programs officer at the Inter-Mediterranean Commission, which is one of the 6 geographical regional commissions of the CPMR. And CPMR, as you know, acts as a strong political voice to represent the voice of the EU regions and making sure that the priorities of the Mediterranean regions are well taken off, are reflected into the EU policies. You also have a strong experience in cooperation, especially in the Euromed program. And you, with the Commission, you address key topics of the Mediterranean, key challenges such as innovation, such as water resilience, and of course, the topic that is of interest today for us, sustainable tourism. So Floria, I'm going to be with you, of course, now. Then we have Gianni Chianetta. He's from the Greening the Island Foundation, a foundation that seeks to develop sustainability and self-sufficiency of the islands worldwide through innovative solutions and also through smart projects and Nexus smart projects. Thank you for being with us. Alessandra Sensi representing the UFM. I think nobody does not know, the UFM. If you don't know it, it's not a problem. So it's, of course, the intergovernmental organization that promotes dialogue and cooperation among the Euro-Mediterranean region with 45 member states. And you, Alessandra, you are head of sector for the environment and green and blue economy. Thanks to be with us also. And then Marcello Scalisi is director of Unimed. Unimed is a Mediterranean network of universities promoting intercultural dialogue and international cooperation. You are an actor of the Interact NextMed program, I'm sure also of other programs. So they are real experts in cooperation. We want to hear from you. What's your testimony on and what can we do on cooperation? The first question that I have for you, and I will be sitting down. So let's not be afraid of the timer. We still have 28 minutes left. They tried to frighten me from the organizers, but I know also that I think there is a bonus if we do it well. Let's see it. So, Flora, let's start with you. So, we know that there are natural obstacles to cooperation in a competitive sector as tourism. On your experience, how can we and how did you in your organization overcome these obstacles? And also, if you can give us an example of good practice of one thing that you did to overcome that obstacle. In fact, I will do the same question to the 4 of you, so I'm not repeating and we gain some time. So, okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, I will be talking about Mediterranean region. So, as you know, all the Mediterranean region, they have their own specificities, their own interests, but they also share a lot of common assets, vulnerability and challenges. And these shared realities, of course, a strong basis for cooperation. So because they share challenges, they can, of course, learn from each other, they can exchange good practices, but also develop common solutions. Cooperation is a way to not only improve individually, but also to turn shared challenges into shared opportunity, and thus to develop more resilient destination. So as you know, the Mediterranean Sea is, of course, a common good with more than 250 inhabited islands. And of course, they share some common challenges such as climate change, pollution, marine solution, resources management. And for that, we need, of course, common action, but also trusts. So, of course, to overcome competition, we need to shift between short-term rivalry to shared risk management and long-term resilience. Maritime and coastal tourism is, of course, the good example because it's the first sector of the blue economy with major opportunities, but also strong interdependencies, and mainly for islands. So there is some crisis, of course, for the sector, such as pandemics, geopolitical instability, climate change, over-tourism. And in this context, fragmented response is, of course, no longer sufficient. So we need to cooperate, to anticipate risk, share knowledge, and develop more sustainable tourism models at macro-regional scale. So beyond the project, the networks such as the CPMR can, of course, support structural cooperation, but also move from isolated project to shared policy impact. And this is exactly why we're involved in Interreg-Euromed and in the sustainable tourism community. I just wanted to share one good example of cooperation to convince you that cooperation is worth it. So we were involved in the past programming period in a project called WinterMed. And in the framework of this project, we developed a transnational strategy for Mediterranean island destination. And the idea of this strategy was to tackle a common challenge, which was the high seasonality during summer. So you know that this means a lot of pressure in terms of environment, economic, but also social aspects. So to tackle that, the regions developed a shared vision on year-round tourism. So they moved from individual destination to working together as one common sustainable tourism ecosystem. Of course, to do that, they shared values and also a strategic framework. So I will just give you, in terms of transferability and scaling up, 3 key aspects. So this strategy was based, of course, on islands, but it's something that could be adopted elsewhere. So in any other destination facing the same challenges. So this is, of course, a strong basis for transferability. Then the strategy itself is based on pilot sites activities, but also on regional action plans. So it is rooted by territorial experiences. And last but not least, of course, in this strategy, you can find tools, but also a structural framework that can help the replication and uptake of this strategy in other territories and also in other tourism subsectors. So I just wanted to add that, of course, the added value of cooperation here is quite clear. We moved from fragmented territorial experiences to shared, transferable, and scalable strategy for sustainable year-round tourism.
Thank you, Flora, and thank you for keeping it so clear and short. I'd like the audience to pick some ideas of whenever you are going to build your projects in the future and trying to convince partners everywhere that it's worth cooperating in projects like Interreg. So I would highlight from your speech the fact that we have to look for shared risks management, because by the end of the day, risks associated to tourism are one of the major problems that we have, and if we convince the other parts that if we manage them together, we all gain, I think it's the point. So Gianni, what do you think?
Yes, I'd like to start from your challenge you gave to us to convince the audience on the value of cooperation. Indeed, I bring my perspective because Green Dialogue Foundation operates globally. I'm coming from the Pacific, I was in the Caribbean, etc. And the real competition is global, is a global competition. And we need to understand that if we really cooperate in our region, that anyway share a sort of culture, we can win the global competition. This is we need to keep in our mind. And competition is very important if it's an health competition, first of all, and that stimulates anyway more attractiveness for the region, also at global level, and which is very fundamental. Indeed, sustainability, as was said before, is a key word. We need to cooperate on the key challenges, as Flora said before, and climate change is indeed, and climate diplomacy is very important. We are political, indeed, discussion, etc. But on the climate diplomacy, we need to cooperate. And indeed, and then sustainability is the reply to the climate challenge that Mediterranean live more than other places in the world. We need to remember that anyway, the temperature in the Mediterranean is one of the highest globally, let me say. So on that regard, sharing knowledge, sharing data is fundamental. Best practices to replicate easily. And on that regard, because Green Dialogue Foundation is partner, Green Dialogue is part of the Dialogue for Tourism Interreg initiative, where indeed we are running the network of sustainable tourism observatories. And that really bring together all the observatories in the Mediterranean, stimulating even the start of new observatories and the sharing best practices on policy, on governance, etc. And right recently, we published an handbook for sustainable tourism observatories, strategy and governance, where we really try to bring real best practices on policy that can really enable really to stimulate the restart of let's say a different kind of tourism. I like make the connection with the lady before, that is not the problem the number, but is really is the quality of people or tourists that include the local, the citizens, which is very important, and all stakeholders. On that regard, also within the Dialogue for Tourism, we started the policy labs, where we have a workshop with the multi-stakeholder discussing together, which is very important, where the public and private sector need to come together and cooperate for a mutual benefit.
Thank you so much, Gianni. So one of the things you can do when you go talking is bring Gianni with you, because you're very convincing. I like to highlight healthy competition, because we always perceive competition as something negative, but it can also be positive. If we all win, maybe it's possible, win-win situation, so very close to it. With all the experience that you have in building cooperation at the higher level, Alessandra, what would be your input?
Thank you very much. I mean, it's a great pleasure to be here. And in addition, I'm another Alessandra from Rome, so I'm bringing, a lot of direct experience to the debate. As Union for the Mediterranean, bringing together the 43 Euro-Mediterranean countries, was very interesting that already in 2021, we had, for the first time ever, sustainable tourism as a joint priority identified by the 43. Now, you know that these processes are not just, summarizing the discussion among the 43 countries, but they go through very broad consultative processes involving different categories of stakeholders. And I'm actually pleased to say, because I had the opportunity myself on the occasion of this event, to look again at what the countries and the stakeholders identified as commonalities in 2021, because somehow all of those have been addressed in different way, also through, the richness of and the quantity of projects that you all Interreg brought together. I'm also very pleased that through this process, and it's really precisely part of this cooperation exercise, the Interreg programs at large were very attentive in indeed involving the Mediterranean at large. And of course, I mean, sustainable tourism is one of the primary sector. They were directly participating also and are in the current consultation. Now, another element that probably wasn't highlighted enough, of course, we talk, because it's very important, something I wanted to mention, it was presented in different beautiful ways, from narratives to behavioral changes to cultural and skills. Let's also not forget the importance of this sector for women and youth, which is also all part of the democratic challenge that we have. So these are the social, let's say, aspects that, of course, we have to look at. Indeed, the context is very different now from 2021. So while we are also restarting our reflection towards a new, let's say, ministerial, absolutely points that were mentioned before. So during the speeches this morning, so the future we want, which is a slogan actually that we used in the past, but also the reality we have of course, to be taken into account. I would like also to refer to the exemplary recent news also about what has happened in Albania. I mean, so let's think that we are not just talking of our territories, we are not just talking of Europe, we are not just talking of Euro-Mediterranean, but that there are a lot of external, bigger, global, elements to be taken into account, which of course brings us to the understanding that there are different paths and different models that have to be taken into account. We discussed that many times. Indeed, the culture, which goes also with the educational element in terms of, I would say, the broader society we want, but of course the tourism model we want go all together. So the issues of the skills, as it was mentioned this morning, but also the narrative we want to use around tourism is particularly important. I mean, we know, and I'm always surprised myself by reading when, scrolling, booking all these luxury apartments or the boutique hotels and, these expressions that were refined over time, while me, of course, as head of sector for environment, green and blue, I'm, definitely more attracted by the green, the ecological, and so on. But of course, as a matter of fact, we have to combine all these elements. As you know, for the Mediterranean, very briefly, of course, there are concrete also challenge that we took. For example, marine litter has been a very important element that we have taken into account, in particular in relation to the tourism sector. We have been working a lot together with a wide range of stakeholders, promoted many projects, but also action and processes, I would say, at Euro-Mediterranean level. This has brought many things together, and the process was actually kick-off. We are now, as of course there is a concentration of interventions on sustainable tourism due to all these very important projects. We are just sort of filling the gaps. So, for example, we are looking at the possibility of twinnings in terms of solution, if you want, among programs. So not just Interreg, but also other programs that are running in the region that are contributing as well, MFAF, bilateral donors, and so on. So as to make sure that the solutions that are identified for similar themes in sustainable tourism can be indeed amplified, replicated to other regions of the world.
Thank you, Alessandra. Well, many things. You bring on the table many things. I would maybe stress one, which is, and from your point of view of the UFM, of course, it's something you have you had to do, is the capacity, if you want to cooperate with people that are different, who have different systems, is the necessary capacity to understand them and to understand that you have something to gain from them and they have something to gain from you. So understanding different systems. Marcello, is it also that in university and networks and cooperation, there are obstacles to overcome? And how did you do it?
Education is always the last. Just to start. No, thanks.
But then you will be the
No,
first.
I'm joking. Thanks for... first of all, I would like to mention something about our way of to convince our colleagues. I think that all of them are already convinced about, if they are here at least. But I think that our role is not only to convince policymakers, in particular local policymakers, to work with us, but also to pass the message to the general public what we are doing here, the reason why we work internationally. I have offered the perspective of a network of universities from 25 countries of the Euro-Mediterranean region, north and south. We started in 1991, before the Barcelona process. We have close to 200 universities, and we work in different domains. Tourism is one of that. But sometimes I find some difficulties to try to convince people why it's important what we try to do daily, because we try at the end, of course, consider the current situation of the Mediterranean. I remember when we launched the Interreg Euromed project in Nice. As a very short anecdote, after the first day was a large event, I don't know, many people were, probably 400 people or something more. We went a big group in a restaurant, and the guy was serving us asked me, "Why are you here?" It's the launch of the Interreg Euromed conference. Amazing. What is that? It's a conference among stakeholders, local actors, and private sector authorities working together to identify solutions for our common problems. Amazing. What do you do concretely? The bill, please. Because I was starting to be in a very difficult situation, to try to transfer this message. And I think that this is part of our daily responsibility. Coming back to your question, Vincent. From the education perspective, we try to involve our universities working together. It's quite easy. Competition is for the business sector. Universities are through research, capacity building, mobility of students are working very well. There is a long tradition of projects, initiative, and recently the Pact for the Mediterranean has been obviously said by Curzio, is in principle, we will see the action then, in principle is trying to define a sort of new agenda for the Mediterranean, and in particular for education. I don't think that for the education sector there is the problem of cooperating among them. The issue is how to transfer this into practice and how to invite universities to be able to work with other actors of the society. Local authorities, don't forget that local authorities in European means something, in the southern Mediterranean means something different in terms of autonomy. But in any case, they are an actor, and so on. How to convince those actors to work together. And looking at the research and education dimension, for sure there is an issue of standardization of data, has been mentioned for the European dimension, but for the Euro-Mediterranean dimension is even more complicated. How to harmonize, or at least to have sharing ideas on education path. Even in the European dimension, education and tourism is very diversified, but in the Euro-Mediterranean it's still more complicated. And moving to example, we already have some example, very interesting on the European dimension, not related to tourism in particular, but related to the methodology, the European University Alliances. Now in the Pact there is a similar initiative for university consortia, that was what we asked, creating Euro-Mediterranean University Alliances. And one of the topics could be tourism, for instance. And also another element could be improved mobility of students and researchers on that. That is quite easy through the Erasmus Plus program. But I would like to mention an issue that is also related, in some way could be related to the tourism idea for Southern Mediterranean countries. Through the Erasmus program, we have a mobility program among Europe and Mediterranean countries. The South-North mobility works very well. Students from the Southern Mediterranean countries, if they are able to solve the visa problem, they come. This works very well. The North-South mobility doesn't work. The students from European countries don't want to go, are not interested at all to go to the Southern Mediterranean, except for those that are studying Arabic or Oriental studies and so on. This means that there is something where we have to work on the cultural dimension of what does it mean the Southern Mediterranean countries, okay? And we have to solve that problem. But let me mention that we have another small important initiative that I hope will grow, which is our academy, the Interreg Euromed Academy. We have to improve that dimension to invite local actors to benefit from the experiences of all our colleagues.
Thank you, Marcello. And it's good, of course, to know that among universities, cooperation is easier. It's good to remind us also that we need to remind that we have to be close to the ground, practical. Maybe sometimes we forget about it because we live in our Interreg bubble, and this is very important, and also close to the local authorities in all programs, I think. 6 minutes, let's see. I think we are very good, so we can do it. And the second question will be the most interesting one, because they are going to give you hints, ideas for the future of cooperation in tourism, meaning for the future generation of calls for proposals that the many programs will launch in a few years. So, priorities for the future of cooperation in sustainable tourism. I would say if you can give 3 priorities, it would be perfect. If not, of course, not a problem. We will reverse the order. In fact, speaking, the last one is not a bad ranking.
No,
It's
okay, it's okay.
So we'll start with you this time. So top 3 priorities for the future of cooperation in Interreg-like projects.
Yeah.
Sustainable tourism.
Can I start? Wait. Thanks. I already said first, we need data. This is for sure. Not only quantitative data, has been mentioned before by the president of ENIT, but we need data and standardization of data. This is something very, very important because without data, we are not able to implement ideas. Then I think that another important is this nexus, again, from my perspective, among education and local actors. Everyone is criticizing each other. It's quite common to say that academics are in the ivory tower, and at the same time, for the academics, it's quite easy to say that local authorities, they don't have the right knowledge to manage what they are managing, and so on. I think that we have to solve that problem and to invite both of these to work together at local, regional, national level. And again, from my perspective as a director of a Mediterranean network, I think that we have to work on the social dimension, again, to pass a message, because we are here in a dimension talking about a sort of positive agenda for the Mediterranean, but we don't have to forget what is happening in the Mediterranean currently. In some of our countries, just a few kilometers from Sicily or from Spain or from Malta, in Palestine, I don't have to mention what is happening in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria. We don't have to forget that dimension, and again, to pass a positive message, the reason why we have to cooperate, because Europe, without Southern Mediterranean, doesn't exist.
Thank you so much. Very clear. So standardized data, nexus local authorities and the rest of entities, academics entities, of course, and social dimensions. Take note, because this will be among the topics of the future. And you, Alessandra, what are your priorities for the...
First of all, I would like, of course, to echo what Marcello said about the situation in the Mediterranean. It goes without saying, to the point that it's even used, to justify some words. So I think we have to be very, very careful, of course, and take that into account, even in terms of new models, you know, that how it could be reshaped. Then, of course, I mean, as I was mentioning, the behavioral and cultural aspects, I think it's coming really strong, that this is an absolute, and educational, of course, an absolute priority. The alignment between these local, national, regional, and as I said, also international, because all these elements have to be taken into account, especially for the Euro-Mediterranean region. I was looking also at the priorities that the countries themselves, you know, proposed, and I'm not listing them, but what I saw was sort of still probably missing is also the focus on the fiscal aspects, so how the revenues could be used, which is not, of course, applying only to sustainable tourism, but it was specifically mentioned as priority by these countries. And another issue which I always thought it's still a problem quite untackled, it's how to restore some of the tourism infrastructures, how to reconvert some of the tourism infrastructure that we have been built over the past years in the Mediterranean, but now we consider them ecological monsters, if you want, but nobody is really able to address it. So this is probably would require some more attention. And to conclude, I really like actually the point made by the other Alessandra before, stressing that, of course, tourists are temporary citizens. So this idea of thinking also the residents as temporary a tourist, it's also something that, of course, need to be explored to find a good match between the two.
Great insights, Alessandra. So maybe in a few years we see a project called Eco Monsters Met. It's not a very positive name, so we have to find something
more
positive. But
the reconversion aspect, let's say.
So let's take note: alignment between the different level of strategies, focus on fiscal aspects. I think it's quite relevant, and also tourism reconversion. Thank you, Alessandra. Gianni, what do you think?
Yes. Anyway, considering the focus of GTI on islands, anyway, climate resilience I will put at the top. Anyway, sharing best practice, using islands as laboratory for solutions for climate resilience is fundamental. Number one, we are living disaster. We have had this year, one of the worst year in terms of weather condition, etc., that affected the tourism sector. Second, this I bring my background as being an engineer. I like to measure anyway, and indeed monitoring the progress is very important, collecting indeed data to monitor the progress towards a more sustainable tourism. We as Green Islands, we also developed an index, a sustainable index that really collect data from energy, water, mobility, waste, which are on the basis of tourism. Think about an integrated sustainability approach, which is fundamental, where, let me say, culture, tradition are part of it, because culture, tradition is part of sustainability. Here I take the chance to say that cooperative Mediterranean don't mean to lose the identity, but to even keeping the identity, try to cooperate in the common area. And third one is governance and the stakeholder engagement. This is fundamental at a regional level, but also locally. Multi-stakeholder cooperation is fundamental. Governments cannot afford this challenge alone. And indeed, we need to leverage on digital tools to cooperate, engage stakeholders, indeed, and the policy lab I mentioned before as also an example of try to promote multi-stakeholder cooperation. So these three, I think, are my view.
Great, really, really tons of value. So islands as laboratories for climate change. This is what I think every time I go to Malta, because there everything is so exacerbated, so it's crazy. Integrated sustainability, approach to sustainability. So yes, we have to advance towards more integrated approach, and then the importance of governance, multi-stakeholders approach based on digital tools, which is governance usually plays an important role in programs like Interact Euromed or Interact NextMed, so I'm sure there will be place for it. Thank you so much. And this time you are the last one, but I still think that being the last one is good. So, Flora.
Yes, thank you. Well, I will be repeating probably part of what has already been said, but yes, I wanted to share the CPMO perspective, of course, and I will base the challenges on the last policy messages that we prepared at CPMO linked to the future EU Sustainable Tourism Strategy. So as challenges that could be tackled through cooperation, I would like to highlight, of course, balancing tourism flows, to move towards more territorial cohesion and reduce pressures, of course. To do so, we can, through cooperation, work on places-based diversification, better destination management, balanced distribution, of course. And of course, we need to work also on carrying capacities and year-round connectivity, especially for islands, actually. Second challenge, accelerating the transition towards climate change. So environmentally sustainable system. To do so, we can, through cooperation, work on climate action plan, development of nature-based solution, and the transfer of innovative solution. A good example is the project Nature for Climate Change that is currently being implemented. In this project, we worked on innovative regional multi-actors governance models and also on developing nature-based solutions at destination level. Last challenge will be on closing governance and implementation gaps through multi-level and cross-sectorial cooperation. Of course, we need to improve the coordination at the governance level, but also to make the link with related policies, such as housing, transport, energy, blue economy. And we need to strengthen the collaboration with academies, private, public sector, and businesses. We have also a good example in the framework of this current period with the Regenerative for Med, working in integrated multi-stakeholders governance toward regenerative tourism. So the idea is to move from limited negative impact towards positive value creation. This for, of course, places and communities.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so your last point was, of course, aligned with the others, but you also mentioned the importance of integrated private sector, which sometimes they say, yeah, okay, you're doing this, but you don't involve the private sector. We know that it's maybe a weakness of the type of programs that we have. Speed up transition, of course, and balancing tourism flows. So all this, I think, will be on the table and in the future of projects. We still don't know how will be the Interact programs, how they will be called, when they will be started, etc. We don't know so much, but one thing is sure, there will be cross-border and transnational cooperation, and tourism will be somewhere, because we cannot cooperate without tourism. So long life to cooperation in tourism. Beyond rivalry, we also have common interests. I know that there is the app for questions. I don't know if we can take a couple of questions or not. It's at 1:20. No? Not this time. Thank you so much for listening to us, and thank you so much to our four panelists. Great experience. Thanks.
Thanks a lot to our speakers.
Thanks.
Hubiera sido 2 horas mejor, pero
Bravissimo.
muy corto.
No, bravissimo.
Much. I'm saying to all speakers and our moderator, Vincent Ernoult, for leading such a vibrant session. And yes, we are convinced. Throughout this morning, we have repeatedly heard one key message. No destination can face today's challenges alone. The transition towards a more sustainable tourism model requires partnerships, cooperation, and the exchange of knowledge, experiences, and solutions. And perhaps Nowhere is this more evident than in the Mediterranean area, a region united not only by geography, but by many of the same opportunities and challenges. Thank you all for helping us understand the practical value of cooperation in making tourism transition a reality. And before heading for lunch, we would like to invite all participants to join us for the official family photo of the third Med Sustainable Tourism Convention. We would love to capture a unique moment that brings together representatives of institutions, projects, destinations, universities, tourism organizations, and public administrations from across the Mediterranean region. It will also serve as a visual reminder of the collective effort that is being made to build a more sustainable future for tourism. We therefore warmly encourage everyone in this room to participate. The photo will be taken at the Patio de las Donas, where coffee was served, and our team will guide you there immediately after this announcement. After the photo, lunch will be served in the same spot and will be available until 2:45. Well, actually, you should be back in this room at 2:45, at 2:45. We kindly ask everyone to be back in the theater at that time to resume the session. And you have the opportunity to ask all the questions that rose from the previous conversation during the lunch break. Enjoy your lunch, enjoy the conversations, and we look forward to welcoming you back shortly for the afternoon sessions dedicated to tourism and climate action. Thank you very much. See you in a while.